This is BIA, Becoming in Action, a space to explore the lifelong journey of growth as leaders, as professionals, and as human beings. Through honest conversations and lived experience, we evolve with courage and intention. Here's your host, Sandy Abear.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. There is a moment that many people reach somewhere in the middle of life when something quietly shifts. On the outside, things may look good. You've built a career. You've raised children or fur babies and cared for people. You've shown up for your responsibilities. You've worked hard. From the outside, your life may look exactly the way it was supposed to look. But internally, something feels different. Maybe you feel restless. Maybe you feel tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. Maybe you're irritable and impatient. Maybe you hear a quiet question that keeps returning. Is this really how I'm meant to live for the next 20 or 30 years of my life? For a long time, our culture has called this moment a midlife crisis. But research in developmental psychology tells a different story. What many people experience in midlife is not a crisis. It's a transition, a shift in perspective, a reorganization of identity, shifting from achievement, status, and identity building to a focus on contribution, legacy, and mentoring, shifting from self-focused to other-focused, connectedness, and often the beginning of becoming more fully ourselves. Today, I want to talk about what's happening during this stage of life and how I see it show up in my own life and in my coaching work. Because when we understand the transition, something powerful happens. The fear softens, and there is space for curiosity. Let's begin. Recently, I had a moment of reflection that stayed with me. I posted a version of this as a reel last week with pictures from my teens. I realized midlife feels like opening a door and finding my 16-year-old self sitting there. She's exactly how I remember. Big feelings, big dreams, big raspy voice. Too loud, too talkative, too ambitious, too much. At least that's what I used to believe. But this time, I don't walk in with judgment. I walk in with love. I see her differently now, not as someone who needs to be fixed, but as someone who needs to be protected. Someone who needed to be told, you are not too much. You're exactly enough for the life you are meant to live. Midlife is the compassion of reevaluation. It's realizing that the traits I spent decades trying to soften, shrink, or silence were never flaws. They were signals, clues, coordinates pointing me toward who I actually am. And somewhere along the way, watching my children grow cracked something open in me. Because when I saw those same traits in them, the intensity, the stubbornness, the fire, the voice, I didn't see too much. I saw magic. I saw leadership. I saw courage. And it forced a realization. If those qualities are beautiful in them, how could they have ever been wrong in me? For me, healing has oftentimes come disguised as parenting, as witnessing. My boys have taught me so many things. They've taken me to so many places I would never have gone. Loving them as fiercely as I do has allowed me to finally learn how to love myself. There's a freedom in midlife that I never expected, a permission slip I didn't know I was allowed to sign. I don't need everyone to understand me anymore. I don't need to fit into smaller spaces to make others comfortable. I'm not shrinking anymore. I'm not apologizing for my voice, my ambition, my presence, my joy. Midlife isn't a crisis. It's a reunion with my 16-year-old self. And this time, I love her. This realization and digging through those old pictures has really impacted me. So many friends have reached out from that reel I posted. It's really funny because my oldest son asked if I really saw myself that way. He thought maybe I was being a little performative to make a point. He doesn't see me that way at all. That narrative of me being too loud and too much didn't connect with the stories I've told him about my childhood over the years. Then my friend Jenny called and said, "Wow, you really captured who you were at that time." She said that we would never have been friends if I wasn't that way. Our last names both started with H, so our lockers were right by each other. Now, I don't remember this, but she says that I marched right up to her at her locker and introduced myself. And I've talked about this previously, but that transition from 6th to 7th grade was really transformative for me. And I did evolve into that version of myself. In the seasons of my life, there have times when I felt like I wasn't enough and seasons where I felt like I was too much. I can tell you, my freshman year of college, my dorm floor gave out superlatives at the end of the year, and I was awarded most talkative and friendliest. All this to say, this week was very special, giving my teenage self some airtime in my own brain and honoring who she was and how she has supported me to become who I am today. Through my own midlife reflections, talking with my friends, and working with clients, I think a lot of people carry these younger versions of themselves with a lot of criticism. We replay mistakes. We judge how naive we were. We cringe at who we used to be. But midlife gives us a gift. Our perspective changes, and suddenly we can look back at that younger self and see something different. We can see courage. We can see the effort. We can see someone doing the best she could do with the tools she had. Instead of embarrassment, we feel compassion. Instead of judgment, we feel love. And that moment, that shift, is a form of integration. It's the moment when the parts of ourselves we once rejected start to belong again. And that kind of self-acceptance is deeply connected to the developmental changes that research describes in midlife. We stop trying to become someone else, and we start learning how to embrace who we've always been. I began noticing that people often move through similar stages during this transition, and I am thinking about this as the becoming framework. Before we jump into that framework, I do have to say, in full disclosure, that this is take 3 of this episode. It's the first time I've re-recorded and tweaked an episode. I am a social scientist at heart, and I love research. I love reading about it. I love digging in. I went down a deep rabbit hole, and I found so many connections and overlap with different researchers and their findings. And take 1 of this episode was a version that I leaned into that. When I went in to edit it, I had to stop. As much as I love the research, listening to it, I could hear it was boring. Like, so boring. And it was boring to me, who loves it. So I did a take 2. It was closer, but was still missing something. And now it's the day before the podcast comes out. So hopefully 3rd time's the charm, because it's go time. Back to the framework. There are 4 phases that people tend to move through: awareness, clarity, alignment, and expression. These stages mirror what developmental psychologists describe as the natural process of identity integration in adulthood. Let's walk through them. Phase 1 is awareness. This is where the journey begins. Something doesn't feel right anymore. You might feel restless, burned out, irritated, or simply aware that parts of your life no longer fit the way they once did. Many people initially try to push through this stage. They stay busy. They work harder. They tell themselves they should feel grateful. But the feeling tends to return. Because this stage isn't about something going wrong, it's about something waking up. Awareness is when your internal compass begins to speak louder than the expectations around you. In simple terms, this is the period when many adults shift from asking, "What can I achieve?" to asking, "How do I want to contribute?" It's a shift from proving ourselves to expressing ourselves. Earlier in life, we often prioritize achievement, status, new experiences, and building our identity. But as our awareness of time changes, we begin to prioritize something different: meaning, connection, authenticity. and emotional satisfaction. In other words, many of the things that drove us earlier in life start to feel less important. The things that truly matter begin to move to the front. As our children become more and more independent, we are forced to start to figure out how we are going to fill our time now. And there are reminders everywhere of the passing of time and mortality. We're watching our parents age and often need to help care for them. Running into a peer you haven't seen in a long time and thinking, do I look that old? Obviously, we're all aging, but when we see it every day, it's hard to recognize it. But when there is that break in time, it becomes very obvious. We're now attending funerals for our older relatives, our parents, our friends' parents, and even for our peers. Our own bodies remind us on the daily that we are aging. The aches, the pains, the wrinkles, the gray hair, and oftentimes more serious health complications. We are constantly hit with the passage of time and mortality. And our sense of time itself changes. Every year seems to go faster than the last. A summer vacation used to feel like a lifetime. Time felt like it was so vast and expansive. We would never run out. We were never going to be old. We were never going to be 30. In midlife, it feels like time is shrinking and limited. The good news is this change in the perception of time can lead us to a focus on the present and on prioritizing emotionally meaningful experiences. Often work begins to feel like a grind. We don't get the same fulfillment that we used to. We may have the job we've always wanted, but it doesn't excite us anymore. For me, I ignored my own spider senses that things were not the way I wanted them to be at work for a few years. Since Luke was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes 7 years ago, work had become a roller coaster. Before we got him on a closed-loop insulin system, we didn't sleep at night. It felt like every night he was high or low, his sensor would go off and we'd have to go figure out what needed to be done. The stress of not sleeping, the stress of having to make life or death treatment decisions in the middle of the night, it was wearing on us. I wondered how I could keep working in the face of it. I will never forget being in California for work and getting a call from my husband, who was moving our 2 older boys into college 3 hours away from home, and him saying, Luke is on the bus and has an urgent low. My mom had been caring for him. She was in a hurry to get back to what she needed to be doing, and she put him on the bus and didn't realize that he was low and he dropped dramatically, and it was scary. I was sitting there thinking to myself, why am I here? Why am I not with my child who is in 3rd grade and feeling scared and alone and ill on the bus? Work just didn't seem that important. But I pushed on. Over time, I started feeling undervalued, unseen, and really pigeonholed. But I think that having Luke at 39 really pushed off my midlife pivot. I was thrown back into having an infant alongside a 10 and 12-year-old. I was so busy raising my kids and feeling like I had to have a stable income. I ignored aspects of my work that made me feel out of alignment and tried to focus on the good as much as possible. An external event of being let go from my job is what forced me to confront those whispers that I had been ignoring. It has been amazing how many people are now telling me that I'm the happiest they've ever seen me, including my mom. I wish I would have paid attention sooner, but you can't regret not knowing what only time can teach you. This awareness shows up as restlessness despite success, questioning priorities. I definitely was feeling this. I felt I'm sacrificing my family. Why am I doing that? Irritation, fatigue, or numbness also shows up. I know I was becoming more and more impatient at home and work. I knew I wanted something to change, but I didn't know what. I didn't know how. I definitely was desiring more meaning. I also was being triggered at work at times. This one guy made me absolutely bananas, which is so fascinating because, yes, he was arrogant and he talked down to me, but I have dealt with that my whole career in a male-dominated field. And I was generally able to be calm and collected. but this guy brought me to near tears every time I spoke to him. But we'll talk about that whole situation another day. Coaching can help in this awareness phase by normalizing the transition, increasing your self observation, identifying patterns, and just naming that gap between what life is and who you are and what you want it to be. It can provide the language for the experience you're having. It helps to reduce shame. It creates openness for growth. The message here is nothing is wrong with you. You're evolving. Once awareness opens the door, the next phase is clarity. This is where the deeper questions emerge. Who am I now? What actually matters to me? What do I want more of in my life? What do I want less of? Developmental research shows that midlife is often when people begin reconstructing their narrative identity. In other words, the story we tell about who we are begins to evolve. We start integrating our past experiences into a more complex and compassionate understanding of ourselves. This is where confidence begins to grow. Not the kind of confidence that comes from external validation, but the kind that comes from self-understanding. As we begin to reconstruct our narrative about who we are and how we got here, we're really considering what our values are now and rediscovering our own strengths. Coaching can help you find the answers to these questions within yourself. It gives you the time and space to explore. And a good coach will ask empowering questions that will help you uncover your own wisdom and knowledge, because you are the expert on yourself. It can give you space for identity exploration, belief examination, what your values and needs are. This then leads to realizing more clearly what your strengths are, what your patterns are, both good and bad, and can lead to some important emotional insights. This results in a deeper self-understanding, a stronger sense of confidence to build on, and the right direction for you begins to emerge. This is where many breakthroughs happen. I was so lucky that clarity came fairly quickly for me after losing my job. I had been thinking about coaching for a long time, but I was worried about what people would say. Coaching lives in this in-between space and can feel a little squishy. It is a cross-section of self-help, self-development, and higher purpose. But I am fortunate because I got enough encouragement and found enough strength within me to be able to say, no, I really do want to go in this direction. I know I can help people, and that is my main goal. Because I felt so unsupported and unsure of what to do in so many situations in my life, both personally and professionally. Everyone is deserving of help. Coaching is one way to get that help and support. I know what I truly value and what matters most to me now. Clarity leads to alignment. And alignment is where insight becomes action. Your life needs to match who you are. And this can feel overwhelming. But remember, you aren't starting over, you're integrating. This stage might involve setting boundaries, changing how you communicate, reevaluating your commitments, or adjusting the way you spend your time and energy. Research on adult development suggests that midlife is often when people move toward greater internal authority. Instead of organizing our lives around external expectations, we begin to organize our lives around our internal values. That shift can feel scary at first, but it's also deeply liberating because life starts to feel more congruent. Coaching can support you as you talk through and think about your decisions, your boundaries, work on your communication skills, look at how you're allocating your energy, and making those behavioral changes. It can help with making career decisions. It can help with recalibrating your relationships. Overall, you can gain a greater congruence within your life. You can reduce your feelings of being overwhelmed. It increases your sense of agency and can help you have clearer relationships. This phase converts insights into reality. For me, I'm doing the things that fill me up now and align what's important to me. It's still uncomfortable at times. I have this feeling that I'm not moving fast enough. And that comes from what the definition of success was for me when I was in the corporate world. That has shifted. And I'm having to remind myself, what is my measure of success? And I have fear. Although I love what I'm doing, I'm uncertain that I'm going to be able to truly make a living at it. But the universe keeps sending me messages through old colleagues, long lost cousins, my mom, so many people that are interacting with what I'm putting out into the world. I'm listening to that encouragement and not the old negative thought patterns. And that is what the last phase is all about: expression. This is what I call becoming in action. In this stage, people stop trying to prove themselves. They begin living more authentically. There's a quiet confidence that emerges here. Psychologists often refer to this stage as generativity. It's the desire to contribute, to mentor, to create, to leave something meaningful behind. And many people find this stage is one of the most fulfilling periods of adulthood. You get to live as yourself. Coaching can help with that leadership presence, helping you show up as yourself and allow that visibility, uncover what you want your contribution and your impact to be, helps you to build sustainable habits and really get into that legacy mindset. Overall, you're building self-trust, authentic confidence, meaning and momentum, and expanding what's possible for you in your life. Living with congruence and authority. You don't need permission anymore. I didn't realize that I had been waiting for permission, and it never came. And like I mentioned earlier, I figured out I could sign my own permission slip. This is not the end. It becomes the new baseline. This process isn't linear. We move through these stages in cycles. New experiences bring new awareness. New awareness brings new clarity, and the process continues. And at the center of all of it is integration. Integration is when the younger versions of ourselves, the teenage girl, the young adult, the new mom, the struggling professional, all begin to belong inside the same story. Nothing has to be erased. Everything can be included. And when that happens, something remarkable begins to grow: self-trust. As humans, we are continually integrating our past identities, our new insights, our emotional experiences, our behavioral changes. Integration is what creates lasting confidence. Without integration, change just doesn't stick. There are three foundational pieces that run through this entire model: clarity, confidence, and action. Clarity is your ability to see yourself and your situation accurately, which can often be difficult. We have a lens that we view the world and ourselves through that has been developed over years of experience and feedback, and it's not always right. Having someone alongside you to challenge the accuracy of the story you're telling yourself can be very powerful. That confidence to trust yourself comes over time. We have to be reminded of what we've accomplished. We need someone sometimes to see the strength in our story when we're so focused on the negative. And as we rebuild our narrative, that confidence grows. Awareness without action is meaningless. I've said that from the start. We need to have action. For anyone that is a visual learner, I've included the model in the show notes, and I would love your feedback. I put awareness at the top of the model because I was thinking about it like a clock. We start at 12 o'clock and move around the circle clockwise. But one person looked at it and said, oh, I think that awareness needs to be at 9 o'clock because we read left to right. Let me know what you think. Did your eye jump to awareness first or expression? My expression is growing and changing constantly, and nothing's written in stone. And I'm continuing to refine all of my thoughts and work products. And this is a case in point. If you're listening to this and recognizing yourself somewhere in this transition, I want you to hear something important. The discomfort you may be feeling might not be a sign that something is wrong. it might be a sign that something is evolving. Midlife is not the beginning of decline. In many ways, it's the beginning of deeper clarity, deeper authenticity, and deeper impact. It's the moment when we stop trying to become who we thought we should be and start becoming who we actually are. And sometimes that journey begins with something very simple, looking back at that younger version of yourself and offering her the understanding, compassion, and love she deserved all along. If you're a high-functioning adult in midlife who is competent but dissatisfied, successful but unfulfilled, responsible but depleted, capable but uncertain, self-aware but stuck, try not to get discouraged. Try to get excited. You are neurologically ready for change because midlife brains have better emotional regulation, greater pattern recognition, a higher motivation to seek out meaning, and a stronger identity capacity. You are at a neurodevelopmental advantage, not decline. It is uncomfortable, but all the really cool stuff in life happens outside of your comfort zone. We are always working to expand that comfort zone and stretching what we do to allow us to do even more. You want or need support as you navigate these transitions and feel like I might be a good fit? Let me know. I'm happy to have a call and discuss. You can go to my website, beapersonalcoaching.com, and sign up for a complimentary discovery call. I would love to help support your evolution. Thank you for being here today. Thank you especially to all of the listeners who have reached out, given me feedback, interacted with the content. It's so meaningful to me that what I'm saying is resonating with people and what I'm doing does matter. I will see you next time.